Hello, everyone, and in today's Locked On Canadians, it's a real bad day if you wanted to win in this organization.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1049 of Locked On Canadians, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week, wherever you get your daily podcasts on Google, Apple, or Spotify. And today's episode is brought to you by Indeed, and Indeed knows you're growing your own business. You have to make every dollar count, and that's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockdown to start hiring now. Terms and conditions apply. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin. I'm joined, as always, by the active stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, if anyone around the Montreal Canadiens organization or fandom today wanted a win in any way, shape, or form, you went 0 for 3, potentially 0 for 4, depending on how the Boston College game is shaping out right now. But I guess we'll start with the NHL level on things here in a with that, it's the Canadiens lost 3-2 in overtime relatively quickly to the New York Islanders. And my first thought is, couldn't you have just done this in regulation and not gotten the extra point in the tank standings? Because
That's what I was about to ask. I was literally about to say, why did they have to go to overtime if they were going to do that?
Because they decided that they didn't play, that they played well enough. They didn't to earn a point in this game. The big parts of this coming out of this are Cole Caulfield's point streak continues. Andy scored again. He's up to 25 on the year. But this is a game I had on the other screen because I was watching the Rocket on another one. And every time I looked up, it was just not much of anything happening as the Islanders just kind of did their thing. And the Canadiens, for as well as they've played in recent games against the Flyers and against some of these other teams, I didn't see any semblance of where that team went in this game here. It felt like they got sucked down to playing the Islanders game and then just didn't do anything. That all their skill and speed, everything just neutralized in here. And again, just lose in regulation next time and get the extra point on that. Or am I just being too harsh on them right now?
I think it's just a matter of the fact that none of the teams did well tonight. And for those of you who are new to us, we are both Red Sox fans. The Red Sox aren't really cooperating either. I think for me, in my preview, I said that in all likelihood, it was either going to devolve into shenanigans or it was going to be one of those dull games that the Islanders are known for. And I'm kind of glad it didn't devolve into shenanigans, but I didn't really, not to sound like a broken record, I didn't really expect the killer instinct that the Canadiens have shown of late to come out tonight. I don't know why. There was something about this game where I felt like what they'd been doing, like that, people call it killer instinct, or they call it, a winning mentality. Toronto's often accused of not having it, but that drive didn't feel like it was there, right? It didn't feel inspired. It didn't feel it didn't feel to me like the Montreal Canadiens were mentally prepared for this game.
And like I said, I didn't get to watch all this as close as I wanted to, but there was such a drop off from all the emotion and everything that happened in that Flyers game, where the Flyers are fighting for a playoff spot. The Islanders are in one with this, and the Flyers did win again tonight, so I believe they are also still in the hunt for things here. And I just want to know, what causes a team to just switch off like that? Yes, the Islanders play a completely different style of hockey where they are physical and everything. That's not a new thing to the Canadiens. You just got done playing Tampa and Florida, who can play with a lot more skill and that physicality. And Samuel Montembeault, I thought, was great. I'm not going to blame him for anything. Caulfield got a couple of points in this game. That's great. But it just feels like one of those games where you were reminded that the Canadiens are not a playoff team this year for a reason. And I was lack of discipline. One, the penalty kill was good, or the Islanders' power play is bad. Take your pick on that. But some lack of discipline on things. The Pizzetta penalty seemed kind of weird. I'm glad the Brendan Gallagher fight thing didn't, take over this game, not people just trying to mug him, which legitimately surprises me. But we were missing some of that kind of sizzle to this game here. I don't believe the Canadiens had a power play in this game, but missing just some of that offensive flair that we know this team can have. And when they're not playing well, or that line isn't driving the bus like it does in a lot of games, every other line suffers there. They don't have to dedicate extra lines, extra, things to that unit to slow it down if it's never getting started. And then they hone in on, Yoel Armia and Alex Newhook and all these other guys, and there's no flow to the Canadiens game here. The worst part is that they don't have long to figure this out, because Saturday, and God, I really wish this was any other day, any other point in the season, they got to play the Senators out of the playoffs, filling their diapers over empty nets in a game that means a lot to both teams. It's all about pride in this one. I would love it if the Canadiens came out and blew them out of the water, but I'm becoming less and less assured that I'm going to see the Flyers game, and I might see like the Rangers game where there's like a moment or two, and then it's just all downhill sledding the other way. I
There's
think,
something about the Senators that honestly the Canadians kind of feel like they're their bogeyman now. It used to be that we could count on the Montreal Canadiens giving them fits. Now it's not that they give the Montreal Canadiens fits, it's the fact that they make everyone want to throw up. And like that's not what I want to see. Like tonight's Habs is not what I want to see against the Ottawa Senators. I would like to see any kind of even if we're talking physicality, like don't be stupid about it, but don't be pushed around by a team that, in my opinion, does not have any right to push you around. Like the Ottawa Senators are not some sort of juggernaut. You know what I mean? They are a mess. They will continue to be a mess. Well, they just fired their scouting, so maybe their scouting won't be as terrible as we're used to seeing, but I don't want to see a loss to the Senators, and it's just going to be so annoying. But like with respect to the Islanders game, I agree with what you're saying. Like there is just that line that drives the bus, and if it ever drives in the wrong direction, the entire team just ends up like flying off the cliff.
yeah, and that's the thing is that this is a game Arbor Jacki will not be playing because he's obviously out for the year. So you'll have likely Michael Pizzetta in the lineup for this. And going into that, it's like, can we just get past the stupidity in this game and just play what should be a normal hockey game? It won't be, because Brady Tkachuk fills his diaper regularly. The Islanders game was what happens when a team that has some good defensive structure, and since Patrick Waugh's gotten there, the Islanders have brought that kind of defensive game back. They're not exciting and they kind of weather a lot, but they've gotten better in that defensive forefront in there. The Senators are just bad, but you don't know what you're going to get one night. One night they might score 1,000,000 goals. One night they might give a bunch up. That I am just truly hoping, keep the good streaks rolling into this weekend here. Caulfield point streak, Nick Suzuki more career points. Mike Matheson topped 50 assists on the season this year or tonight. First defenseman with over 60 points since PK Subban years ago. I want to keep all those good things rolling. Can Yoel Armia hit 20 goals? Can Slafkovsky hit 20 goals? Can Caulfield hit 30 goals? All of these things are attainable in the final 3 games here. Yeah, they maybe need a bounce or two in one of these games, but I want to see if they can actually do that. And tonight, I didn't see a team that looked like they were going to get over those final bumps in the road. And I know it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things if Slafkovsky hits 20 goals or not on a season, but meaningful, prideful things I think mean a lot to this team, that they can build on all of these. Yeah, Slafkovsky hit 20 goals. Can he hit 25? Can he hit 30? Caulfield, in a down year, is looking to hit 30 goals. He could do it. Nick Suzuki, in a down year, set career highs on everything. Yoel Armia, after starting the season in the AHL, career high in goals. Go out on a high note. Don't kind of whimper in the wind like this. Like what we saw tonight is a team that is thinking about world championships, thinking about, whatever's ahead in the offseason. I like the Habs team that can play spoiler here. In the last 3 games, they can do that to Detroit too. They can ruin that entire thing. We are going to shift gears because we have to get on to the second biggest loss, but maybe a win, depending on which way you want to look at that. And that's coming up next. But first, we got to talk to you about the folks at a Policy Genius. And we know life insurance is important. It provides that safety net for your family if anything tragic should ever occur there. And with Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. I know no one likes to think about having to fill out what happens when I am gone or going through that whole process. Policy Genius helps you compare all of your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts are on hand to help talk you through that. And you can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. So click life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in our description to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. As we said, everybody lost tonight. And we're not talking about the Laval Rocket tonight because it is so infuriating that I do not want to talk about that game at all. You can see my thoughts on it on Twitter because I can't say them on this podcast because it would give us an explicit rating and that would be bad for the show.
And you'll hear about it at our 3 down.
Yes, you'll, depending on how Saturday goes, they might be the entire down list where I might just dedicate a show to yelling at the AHL team for all I know. The other big one, this was happening concurrently to the Rocket losing 6-4, was Boston University lost in overtime to Denver University in the first of the Frozen Four semifinals today. Lane Hutson was at fault for one of the goals against, and then the officials just decided to not call any penalties against Denver the entire game, despite them being blatant to the point that even the national broadcast calling the game on ESPN was beside themselves on what was let go. Denver eventually wins it in overtime. So Sam Harris, whom I've forgotten to mention a lot in this because he's a freshman and is in no danger of signing an entry-level deal here right now, and Denver advanced to the final, which I believe is likely shaping up to be against Boston College right now. But Lane Hutson, Luke Tuch, and by proxy, Macklin Celebrini, their season is over. Done. Kaput. We will have to wait to see if Macklin Celebrini will be a Montreal Canadien at the draft lottery. But for right now, we are in full Lane Hutson watch effect right now. Luke Tuch is also invited, I guess. I feel bad saying that, but
also no invited, I guess.
he's like, yeah, you can bring your brother, I guess. Like, I assume he'll go right to the Rocket on some kind of thing. I'm not anticipating any news out of the end of this game here. I keep checking Twitter to make sure. I haven't seen it, so.
What are the chances, though, that neither of them does anything and they're like, who cares? I don't want to burn a first year. I mean, it is to their advantage, though, right? Like, they get richer faster.
My thought is that if they don't want to sign an entry-level deal, I mean, Luke Tuch is done with college. He's played 4 years, and he wasn't redshirted his first year, so he doesn't get that extra year of eligibility. I believe, I'm not sure when his rights expire, but he would need a contract no matter what out of college. Lane Hutson, I assume, will sign his entry-level deal, and they will send him. They might just send him to the Rocket at this point. I think they want to see him at the NHL level, and they're going to, see what is the best option for this. The Rocket desperately need him, but I think the Habs and the Habs fans would like to have him in the lineup before too long. Obviously, we're recording this at 10:30 on Thursday night. Kent Hughes is in Minneapolis watching everything. I would not be surprised if the first thing you hear at, say, 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow is both Tuch and Hutson have signed entry-level contracts. I'm also up in the air on whether they'll sign Luke Tuch at all, honestly. But Lane Hutson, I would not be shocked if he's first thing tomorrow morning. One of the first things you see tomorrow morning will be that contract announced.
I think it would be really fun if they do send him to the NHL. Not just because, I'm selfish and I want to see it. I also just feel like right now is not a good time to do a chemistry experiment with him and David Reinbacher and Laval when they are just, everything is going wrong and they really, really need it to go right. Whereas like for the Habs, like I kind of worry that some idiot goon on the Ottawa Senators is going to try and kill him. Yes, I do worry about that. Um, but I think that he's fast and slippery enough to get away from that. I just want to see some positivity again. Like I felt so good after that Flyers game, both Flyers games actually that we watched recently. It was just fun. Things were just fun. We were so happy with Slavkovsky's hat trick. All those streaks when Cole Caulfield started scoring again, all that stuff was making us so happy. And then against the Islanders, you're just kind of like, they're back to being boring. So I'd like to see Lane Hutson like put a spark into this team. And I honestly, truly, like, I don't want them to lose to the Ottawa Senators, but like I wouldn't feel too bad if they lost to the Red Wings, right? And the Red Wings were able to advance into a playoff spot.
Yeah, your point about them not wanting to mess with chemistry on things is right, but at the same time, Jack Guy's done for the year. We haven't gotten an update on Caden Gooley, so again, still really good job not penalizing him getting hit from behind. NHL, great league you've got here. I hope Nikita Kucherov falls in a sewer again, but I know that there's something that can be there because I am looking at like the third pairing in Laval right now. It is Matthias Norlinder and it is Olivier Galipeau. They're not going to stick, Lane Hutson with either of those players. It's not what's going to be best for him. They gave David Reinbacher a steady veteran, and that's worked out pretty well so far. And I could see them sticking him with Reinbacher because there is chemistry there. I just want to see, I want to have something worth tuning in for because if the Rocket lose on Saturday, they are basically out of the playoff race at this point. The Canadiens are eliminated. I want to have something to tune in otherwise and watch here. Yes, the players are chasing these things, but at the same time, if I'm going to sit down and dedicate my time to watching this team instead of enjoying finally the spring weather, make it worth my while here. I'd like to see Luke Tuch come in too, and that's not just, I'm not forgetting about him. I know Lane Hutson is just the focus. They could use a bruising forward there, someone who can add some of that power and finesse as they get into these games here. I don't think he's going to be at the NHL level. I would hope he's not. I don't think he's there yet. Give me something else to tune in for. David Reinbacher has been very good with the Rocket. Flawless, no, but good enough that I am a lot more enthused about what I have seen there. I want to see what Lane Hutson does against other men outside of the World Championships because I assume he will go to that too, unless he gets assigned to the Rocket and they go on a deep playoff run. Who actually knows? I predict he'll be signed before all too long. Like I said, Kent Hughes is in Minneapolis right now. I would bet good money that he will be signed by tomorrow on his way to Montreal, or I don't think they're playing in Ottawa, are they? I actually didn't know where they're going to be at. So yeah, they are playing in Ottawa. So that's great. He's going to get lost on his way to Canada, where he'll see Brady Tkachuk eating out of a dumpster next to like a McDonald's or something, I guess. So I'm just going to keep being mean to teams because I feel sad today. That's where we're going with this episode.
In fairness, the Ottawa Senators deserve it just for existing. So
yeah, I was gonna say if you score an empty net goal and everyone comes to your defense and then you absolutely fill your diaper over an empty net goal, you should get owned forever. Unfortunately, those are just how the rules kind of work here. Laura, did you have any parting thoughts before we move into what is going to be me just making fun of the Arizona Coyotes for an entire segment now too?
It occurs to me I didn't check the outcome of the Penguins Red Wings game.
The Penguins won in overtime. Sidney Crosby got his 1,000th assist on Erik Karlsson's overtime winner.
Wow.
So we hold the fate of the Detroit Red Wings in our hands, basically.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. I would rather see the Red Wings in there, honestly. But that was it. And we did talk a little bit about the Coyotes, but I think I was a lot nicer about it this morning.
Oh, I'm going to be mean with the latest news that has come out about this team. So
also, if you sent us mailbag questions, I promise you the ones that we have left over, we will do them for next week. Early next week, I promise.
I was just say we can put them in part of the Monday episode. We'll do them on a Tuesday episode. We have plenty of stuff to get to on that. We promise before I have to head to Michigan. So we will get everything squared away in that. But we are going to get to maybe a few of the mailbag questions in here. But I have to share my thoughts on this whole Coyote situation because I missed it. And that's all coming up next. But first, when you're drafting for your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could hand pick the best stars for your business team as well? And if you're building your talent roster, you are going to need Indeed, because Indeed is the platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You don't have to spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed using their suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessment, and virtual interviews. And if you hate waiting, Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. I went through the whole hiring process last year. Indeed, the minute I uploaded my resume, within days, hey, these people, you are a fit, you're a fit, you're a fit. Do you want to set something up? Makes it so easy and takes all the stress out of it. So join over 3 million businesses worldwide when using Indeed to hire great talent fast. And Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. And that's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Just visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring today. That is Indeed.com/lockedon. Some terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. And if you need to hire, you need Indeed. And also one of our sponsors today is the fine folks from Factor, because you can eat stress-free now this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You can choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including Calorie Smart Things, Keto, Protein Plus, Vegan and Veggie, and more, and discover 60 add-ons every week for things like breakfast, on-the-go snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. Get started today and fuel your springtime goals. No fuss meals. Factor meals eliminates the hassle of prepping, cooking, and cleaning up. Simply heat and savor all the delicious goodness. And it is tailored to your schedule, so you can customize your weekly meals with the flexibility to get as much or as little as you need. Pause and reschedule deliveries to suit your lifestyle. And Factor is your solution for fast premium meals without the need for cooking. So head to factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 and use code LOCKEDONNHL50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box after that. That's code LOCKEDONNHL50 at factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. Okay, so the Arizona Coyotes, in that I want to preface this by saying this fan base deserves a lot better than what repeated ownership across their existence has ever given them. Well and truly do I mean that. The growth of hockey in the American Southwest has been very important to see players like Austin Matthews and his receding hairline come to prominence in the NHL and be one of their biggest stars. The fan base deserves much more than that for getting behind a team that will not love them back. And I think what has become a tipping point for me here is, oh my God, the whole arena situation. We're going to build an arena. We're going to do all these things. We're going to definitely do this outside Phoenix. And then the mayor comes out and goes, you will never build anything here. And then they walk it back and go, there's hope again. And then immediately within a day, there were relocation rumors happening. And now they're preparing a schedule for the team in Salt Lake City or to move here, and that the groundwork has already been laid and they're not really communicating this to the players. And all these things are happening. Well, they're behind on rent at the arena, at Mullet Arena as well. And we've made all our jokes about rent and not paying anything. Today, from Frank Saravalli on the Daily Faceoff podcast, the Coyotes, when traveling, weren't paying their hotel bills, and the hotels around the league banded together and demanded that Coyotes paid for their hotel stays up front with a certified check. I have to look at this and go, you are an NHL team that is about to be sold potentially for $1 billion to the league here. And you are not paying your hotel bills. There's only so many places you can stay around in the NHL that aren't part of a chain. And all of them probably fall in that same chain there. So when you skip on it once, you probably get put in a system that you're going to duck out on your bill. You're an NHL team not paying your bills. I don't want to hear any more about this. We're committed to staying in the desert. We're committed to making the most of this. We're committed to a new arena. Commit to paying your actual bills that you have right now before you get on the soapbox that you haven't paid for to tell me about an arena that you're not going to pay for rent that you're behind on, and you're going to end up being owned by the NHL again anyways. Coyotes fans deserve so much more than what their current owner is doing for them. I no longer feel bad about this whole relocation thing. The fans, it's bad for them. The entire ownership group here should never be allowed within 10 feet of another professional franchise. That's embarrassing. I don't own an NHL team. You know what I do? I pay my bills on time because I'm not a scumbag who skips out on things. That's a joke. And if that story ends up being like the full truth there, the NHL just needs to go, no, you're done. The vote, you're done. You're out at this point. We are moving this team. You are not a part of this anymore. You cannot be trusted to own a franchise in this league or anywhere at this point. So that is that
Yeah.
is my rant.
Like like one of the tenets of anything really, it's like a thing that we always have to learn. Don't spend money you don't have. If you don't have this money, why are you owning a franchise? And the thing is, like, from what I could tell from the story, again, we don't know the full details of it just yet, but they just weren't paying. It's not even like whether or not they had it. Like, that's not even something we know at this point. We just know they weren't paying their bills. Like, why would you do that? Why? Like, what are you trying to get away with?
And it's here's the thing is in most places that it's like, wow, an NHL team skipping out on their hotel bills, that feels really unrealistic until you look at the mountain of other flags here that have popped up that make you realize, oh, yeah, this is actually something that they would do. Why or how? I don't know. Did you sneak your team out like in bits and pieces that they didn't notice? An entire NHL team left the hotel without paying? Like how does that happen? Like it's so frustrating because I want hockey in non-traditional markets to work. People who have owned the Coyotes have done nothing but give everything else a bad name. Nashville, non-traditional market, great. Florida has come back from the brink. Yes, they are a good hockey team. Tampa Bay has long been a successful team. Dallas, etc. The entire California stretch there. But then you have the Coyotes who just drag this down because when they do something wrong, it is not a little thing. They're playing in a college arena. They're not paying rent. They can't get another arena. They struck out on this, struck out on this. They're not paying their bills. Come on. Like, what are we doing here, honestly? And I would expect better of an NHL franchise. And I can't imagine if this report is true that other owners are happy about it or that Gary Bettman is happy about it either.
And that's the thing, like, you're not alone in this, and if you're trying to keep a franchise, like, this is not a good way to ingratiate yourself with the powers that be, whether it is, some of the bigger market team owners or it's just the NHL as a whole.
Yeah, it's because I believe part of it was, oh, they're going to move to Salt Lake City and allow him to retain control of the team. At this point,
I
if this
don't
is
think that's
true,
happening.
you cannot allow this to happen at that point. You're setting that whole new franchise up, not new franchise, but new team up for immediate disaster with someone who's clearly cannot be trusted to run this organization the way that it needs to be.
Right, and we talk about it so many times here. Like, a toxic ownership group is not going to enable a team to succeed in any sport or any market, right? They could be they could be people we don't necessarily like or agree with, but if they're not running things above board, it's just not going to work, and everything's going to be in disarray. And we've seen so many times, like you hear behind the scenes after some GM or something gets fired, you hear about like all kinds of interference from the ownership group, and then that franchise just stagnates. It's always a laughing stock. It's not something necessarily, that fixes itself until there is a new ownership group. And I mean, I think one of the most recent things is the Ottawa Senators. You look at that, like the ownership was constantly being criticized, and the team itself has absolutely nothing to show for those years. They had a near miss, and that was it.
It is never good when you're hearing the owner be involved with person. And admittedly, I don't think I've heard too much of that with the Coyotes in terms of like what the GM and stuff is doing. The GM, I think, has done a pretty decent job with what he was dealt, but the ownership is screwing up so many other things that none of it matters anymore. Like, and what happens if they move this team and they go, we want to bring in our own people now? There are people in this that are going to lose their jobs because one person or a group of people at the top aren't doing things properly. And that's unfair to the players, to the coaches, to some this front office who has nothing to do with the rent and the buildings and all these other things here. That falls on ownership. And if ownership's not going to do its job properly, they are failing people who are working really hard to try and make this team successful in a college arena that is not NHL quality, that is in danger of being moved constantly or bankruptcy or being sold and all these other things. This all falls on them. I make fun of the Coyotes Twitter account, not because I don't think that, the GM or whatever's doing a good job. It's because the entire franchise, the things at the top are making it a laughing stock. And I know we said we were going to get to some of the mailbag questions. We are going to have to shift those into next week just because I really want to talk about this and the updates and everything like that. We promise we will get to all of those next week, whether that be Monday or Tuesday. We promise we'll get to those with our 3 up and 3 down as well. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at @LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. If you've got some late mailbag questions you want to send in, you can follow Laura at The Active Stick. You can follow myself at Scott Matla. And until then, folks, we will see you all next time.